Welcome to the complete story of one of literature's darkest secrets, the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. From a quiet London street to a desperate final confession, witness the terrifying story of a man who tried to separate good from evil and unleashed a monster. Let's begin with Chapter 1. Story of the Door. Story of the Door. Our story starts with Mr. Utterson, a respected lawyer. He was a stern-looking man, rarely smiled, and didn't talk much. Despite his seriousness, he was loyal and kind to others. His closest companion was Mr. Richard Enfield, a distant relative. People often wondered what these two had in common, as they usually walked in silence during their Sunday walks. One Sunday, their walk took them past a strange, two-story building. It was ugly, neglected, and had just one door without a bell or knocker. "Did you ever notice that door?" Enfield asked. "It reminds me of a very odd story," Enfield began. "Well, it was a black winter morning about 3 o'clock. Suddenly, a short man and a young girl ran into each other. The horrible part is, the man calmly trampled right over the child and left her screaming on the ground. It was a hellish sight. I caught the man and dragged him back. A crowd gathered, and we forced the man to pay the family £100. But guess where he took us to get the money? That very door. He pulled out a key, went inside, and came back with a large check signed with a very famous and respected name. The check was genuine. I call that place Blackmail House." Utterson then asked suddenly, "What was the name of the man who walked over the child?" "Hyde," Enfield replied. Utterson was shocked. The story had hit too close to home. Search for Mr. Hyde. That same evening, Utterson went straight home and pulled out a document. Dr. Jekyll's will. This will stated that in the case of Dr. Jekyll's death or disappearance, all his property would go to his friend and benefactor, Mr. Edward Hyde. Utterson went to see another old friend of Jekyll's, Dr. Lanyon. Lanyon said he hadn't seen much of Jekyll for 10 years because of a falling out over Jekyll's unscientific ideas, and he had never heard of a Mr. Hyde. From that moment on, Utterson began haunting the door in the by-street. His patience finally paid off. He saw a small man crossing the street, pulling a key out. Utterson stepped out and put his hand on the man's shoulder. "Mr. Hyde, I think." Hyde shrank back with a hiss. Utterson finally got a good look. Mr. Hyde was pale and dwarfish. He gave an impression of deformity that was impossible to name or describe. Utterson felt an immediate, unexplainable, murderous disgust for him. He left thinking, "Oh, my poor old Harry Jekyll, if ever I read Satan's signature upon a face, it is on that of your new friend." Utterson then spoke to Dr. Jekyll's butler, Poole, who confirmed that Mr. Hyde has his own key to the laboratory door and that all the servants are ordered to obey him. Dr. Jekyll was quite at ease. 2 weeks later, Utterson was the last guest to leave Dr. Jekyll's dinner party. Utterson brought up the subject of the will. "Jekyll," Utterson said, "you know I never approved of that document where you leave everything to Mr. Hyde." Dr. Jekyll smiled warmly. "Poor Utterson," he said. "You are making this much worse than it is. I am entirely in control. Believe me, old friend, I can get rid of Mr. Hyde any time I like." Utterson was not satisfied. "I have seen his face, Jekyll. There is something truly detestable and evil about him, and it makes me fear for you." Dr. Jekyll's voice suddenly changed. "I want to hear no more about it. But since you have spoken to me of this, you must promise me. Promise to help him. Promise that you will ensure Mr. Hyde gets his rights and justice, because I have a deep interest in him." Utterson, horrified, could only promise. The Carew murder case. Nearly a year later, London was shocked by a crime of singular ferocity. A maidservant saw an aged and beautiful gentleman, Sir Danvers Carew, MP, walking in the lane. He was met by the very small man she instantly disliked. The small man suddenly exploded with pure rage. He raised a heavy cane and trampled the older man to the ground with ape-like fury, raining down a storm of blows. When the police were called, they found a sealed envelope addressed to Mr. Utterson in the dead man's pocket. Utterson was horrified. He immediately recognized the broken cane lying nearby as one he himself had given to Dr. Jekyll. He knew instantly the murderer was Mr. Hyde. Utterson confirmed the victim's identity and led the police directly to Mr. Hyde's house in Soho. Inside Hyde's luxurious but messy rooms, the police found the remainder of the missing cane among a pile of ashes where papers had been burned. The evidence was overwhelming, and the search for Edward Hyde began. Incident of the letter. The next day, Utterson went to Dr. Jekyll's house. Jekyll looked very sick. His face was pale. "Utterson, I swear to God, I will never set eyes on him again," Jekyll promised. He claimed Mr. Hyde had disappeared for good. He even showed Utterson a letter from Hyde, confirming his departure. Jekyll then handed Utterson the letter, asking for advice on whether it should be given to the police. Utterson promised to keep it safe. As Utterson was about to leave, his chief clerk, Mr. Guest, a handwriting expert, came in. Utterson showed him the letter and asked his opinion. Guest looked at the letter, then looked at a letter from Dr. Jekyll. Guest turned to Utterson with a strange expression. "Utterson," he whispered, "the two hands are in many points identical. The only difference is the slope. The man who wrote this letter is the same man who wrote Jekyll's will." Utterson was horrified. The letter was a forgery, and Dr. Jekyll had written it himself to protect Mr. Hyde. Remarkable incident of Dr. Lanyon. A few months passed, and Mr. Hyde completely disappeared. For a short while, Dr. Jekyll was his old self again. Utterson was relieved, but this peace did not last long. One day, Utterson went to see Dr. Lanyon, who was now pale, wasted, and near death. "I have had a shock. I shall never recover," Lanyon said. When Utterson brought up Dr. Jekyll, Lanyon's face twisted with horror. "I do not wish to see or speak to Dr. Jekyll again," he said fiercely. "I look upon him as a dead man." Soon after, Dr. Lanyon died. After the funeral, Utterson opened a document Lanyon had given him some weeks before, labeled "Private," for the sole use of Mr. G.J. Utterson. Inside, he found another envelope, sealed and marked, "Not to be opened till the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll." Utterson, though consumed by curiosity, locked the document in his safe, promising himself he would not break his friend's final instruction. Incident at the window. After Lanyon's death, Jekyll went back into complete isolation. One Sunday, Utterson took his usual walk with Mr. Enfield. They passed by the old, sinister door and looked up at the windows of Dr. Jekyll's laboratory. Suddenly, they saw him. Dr. Jekyll was sitting next to the open window. Utterson called up, "Jekyll, my friend, why don't you come out and walk with us?" Jekyll smiled a moment, but it was a cold, despairing smile. "I dare not, Utterson," he replied. "I am confined here." As he spoke, a look of pure, silent horror suddenly came across his face. The despair was replaced by an expression of animal terror and despair. Before Utterson or Enfield could speak, the window was violently shut down, leaving the two men standing in stunned silence. The last night. One winter night, Dr. Jekyll's butler, Poole, arrived at Utterson's office, terrified. "I fear foul play," Poole whispered. "I believe the master has been murdered." Poole explained that for 8 days, Dr. Jekyll had been shut in his laboratory, and the voice that came from the room was not the doctor's voice. It sounded like the horrible voice of Hyde. The person inside kept sending Poole out to find a particular chemical powder, complaining that the powders were not pure. Utterson and Poole stood outside the locked door of the inner laboratory. Utterson called out, but the terrible, weak voice replied, "Tell Mr. Utterson I cannot see anyone." "That is Hyde's voice," Utterson declared. They decided they must break down the door. Poole took a heavy axe and smashed the door open. They found the room empty. On the floor, near the fire, lay the half-dead body of Mr. Hyde, dead by poison. They found 3 things: a fresh will in Utterson's name, a long confession from Jekyll, and a note asking Utterson to read Dr. Lanyon's document first. Utterson stood over the body of Mr. Hyde, convinced that the case was solved, Hyde had killed Jekyll and then killed himself. Dr. Lanyon's narrative. Utterson immediately returned to his office to read Dr. Lanyon's sealed document, which he was finally allowed to open. Lanyon's letter described how he received a desperate letter from Jekyll asking him to go to Jekyll's laboratory, collect a drawer full of chemicals, and bring it back to his home at midnight. Lanyon did as he was asked. At midnight, a small man arrived, Mr. Hyde. Hyde was impatient and quickly snatched the drawer. "Now, Lanyon," Hyde hissed. "You can stay and witness the most wonderful scene of your life." Hyde mixed the chemical powder with water and drank the potion. He immediately began to shudder and cry out. The short body grew taller, the muscles softened, and before Lanyon's very eyes, Edward Hyde had transformed into Dr. Henry Jekyll. This terrifying sight was the shock that killed Lanyon. He concluded his narrative. "The creature who sat before me was gone, and in his place was Henry Jekyll. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are one and the same person." Henry Jekyll's full statement. After reading Lanyon's narrative, Utterson finally opened Dr. Jekyll's final confession. Jekyll's statement explained his original problem. He believed every human being has two sides, one good and one evil. He invented a drug that could separate these two natures. When he drank it, he became Edward Hyde, a being of pure evil without any conscience. Jekyll realized that as Hyde, he was free to commit any sin without consequence. But the balance started to shift. The more he became Hyde, the harder it was to return to Jekyll. Worse, one night, he went to sleep as Jekyll but woke up as Hyde, without drinking the potion. When Hyde murdered Sir Danvers Carew, Jekyll was horrified and resolved to stop. But soon, the transformation became involuntary. The original chemicals ran out, and new batches did not work. Jekyll concluded his statement, writing that Hyde was now in control most of the time, and the pain of transformation was unbearable. He wrote that he was laying down the pen for the last time. He knew that Hyde would take over, and Hyde would either be hanged or commit suicide. "I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end," the confession concluded, leaving the final note of death and despair. And that is the terrifying conclusion to the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The respectable doctor found that he could not destroy the evil within him, only set it free. Like this video, share it, and subscribe for more classic horror stories.